thought it'd be a paper clip that would either make or break someone's season. NASCAR's penultimate race is in Martinsville, and we are breaking it down right now. And I mean, can you feel it? The pressure is officially on. Welcome into Around the Track. Carla Metz alongside America's crew chief, Larry McReynolds. Larry, Talladega absolutely did not disappoint in the round of 8, but now we go from one of the bigger tracks to one of the smaller in Martinsville.
Yeah, we had big pack racing at Talladega, you know, 3 and 4 wide, 7 rows deep. We're still going to have big pack racing with 37 cars packed around a little half-mile racetrack. Hard to stay out of trouble at that little short track. Yeah, and we're looking forward to it. But one of those guys is in a win and in situation. He's going to be in Garage Confidential a little later. That's the 12 of Team Penske, Ryan Blaney. He's standing by. But for now, Virginia isn't for lovers this weekend. It's also for racers. And who would have thought that a grandfather clock would be the ticket to drive in the championship? That's the prize they're driving for this weekend. At least the 6 drivers still in contention are. Now, you won't see NASCAR's top speeds on this half-mile oval, but you will see a mad dash to get to the front. Martinsville quickly becomes a place where if you fall behind, it's nearly impossible to get back due to those quick lap times. Hands and wrists are going to be burning up in this one. These guys shift hundreds of times in such short quarters. And with no clear-cut favorite, there are a ton of storylines. But for the drivers, they can ignore that all by doing one thing, and that's winning.
Yeah, Martinsville is tough. It's a hard racetrack because you have to be good on the long run, and what it takes to be good on the long run is different than what it takes to be good on the short run. And with the race being 500 laps, you're going to have many of times where you're, out there and going really long on tires, and you never know how it's going to end at the end. You can have, green, white checkers at the end. You can have short runs, or it could go 250 laps straight from the end of stage 2.
I think at Martinsville, it's just a little harder for me to feel the tire, but yeah, I can get into a rhythm for what works for me eventually. It just takes a little bit of time. I think it definitely takes a little bit of time. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most difficult, which, you'd probably talk to a short track guy like a Chase Elliott or Denny or Blaney, and they probably think it's the easiest, just because they grew up doing that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, again, it's just hard for me to get into. It's not hard. It's not impossible. It's just, it takes me a little bit more time to get into a rhythm than it would at most tracks.
All right, let's check out those track trends. It's an even playing field for the most part. The 6 remaining playoff drivers not locked into the championship 4 are all Martinsville winners with a combined 8 wins there. We preach qualifying here. However, 5 of the last 6 Martinsville races were won from the starting position of 11th or worse. 10 drivers led at least 100 laps at Martinsville in the next-gen car. In those 10, all 8 current playoff drivers. So watch it down on pit road. This is another area of concern. We've seen 8 speeding penalties handed out on pit road when we were here earlier in March. And in the fall race last year, there were 6 penalties. So, Larry, let's bring you back in. And we've seen so many recent desperation moves at Martinsville. You got to think of the Hell Melon and Ross Chastain. Do you think drivers are going to be maybe that desperate to try and find a move like that this weekend?
Well, honestly, when I look at the 4 drivers below the cut line, when you look at Byron and Chase Elliott, Logano and Ryan Blaney, they pretty much know, the math may not show it, but they know they're in a must-win situation. And they know the only way they're going to move on to Phoenix to race for a championship is they're going to have to win this race. And who knows what they might do. We saw what Joey Logano did back in 2018 to Martin Truex Jr. So, yeah, desperate people do desperate things. Sometimes, Carla, it'll work out.
All right, we're talking about Martinsville. How do these guys attack a short track like this? You got to think about shifting being really important, but also these restarts, they can be a little dicey on the short track.
Well, yeah, if you try to get more than 2 wide, unlike at a 1.5-mile track or unlike at a super speedway, it gets very, very edgy. Obviously, you want to be on the inside because that's the preferred lane, but we're talking 500 laps. 3.5+ hours of racing, and you mentioned it earlier, shifting about 4 times a lap. The pit crews are going to be making a ton of pit stops, but I think the big challenge there for the drivers and the crew chiefs is you've got to have a good short run car in case we get that late race caution, but you have to have good long run speed because even though it's a short track, we get some long runs there.
Yeah, some difficult decisions as we go through practice and qualifying this weekend, but we are still looking for an individual champion, but there's still a very important owners championship, which means maybe you think the two guys that have clinched, you've got Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, they're going to try to maybe help Christopher Bell out this weekend. You would think that. But before we get into that, here's where we sit at a short track. These numbers are going to hold pretty well, I would say, pending where they qualify. Briscoe and Hamlin, they're locked in. Nothing to worry about for those drivers. Bell, he's just 1 point up on Kyle Larson, who's 36 points above the cut line. You heard the drivers. You got to think someone in the bottom half might win and steal a spot, which will make that 20 versus 5 car really something to watch during this race. But then, of course, Byron, Logano, Blaney, and Elliott, they're all in this win and in situation.
Yeah, I could take a piece of paper and I could write down a bunch of different scenarios, but I think it's 2 scenarios. And I talked to Kyle Larson this week. I talked to Adam Stevens, Christopher Bell's crew chief, and they know their goal is just outpoint the other one. If they do that, they know no matter what happens below that cut line, who wins this race, they're going to Phoenix for race for a championship. It would take Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson having a disastrous day for anybody below that cut line to point their way in. I think for those 4 teams, it's not about stage points. It's doing everything you can to manipulate this race to be in position to try to win this thing at the end.
And not let those other guys get a win, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, we did talk about it last week, Larry, but we do have maybe some Penske problems to talk about. Both Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney are good at this track. Ryan punched his way to Phoenix at this race twice before. I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to help the 12 out here, but the Fords couldn't even push Blaney last weekend in Talladega. What's going on in the Penske camp right now?
Well, what the doctor ordered may be Martinsville and may be Phoenix, because think about Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
He's won the last 2 playoff races at Martinsville. Joey Logano, he's not won there in the Gen 7 car, but his numbers in those 7 races with that car, they are lights out, top 5s and top 10s, and I promise you, nobody in the championship 4 want to see a Team Penske driver advance because we know how they run there. They ran really well at Loudon, which is a very similar racetrack a few weeks ago. They do not want to see Blaney or Logano show up at Phoenix to race for a championship.
All right, so maybe we shouldn't hit the brake shed on Team Penske, but Larry is keeping track of time, and it's time for us to get to the 12's house because he does want another grandfather clock in that bar area.
Everyone usually kind of gets their revenge on people that race. Everybody in the field is kind of has their bones to pick and they save it for that race, so you have to avoid all that chaos.
Hopefully nobody is out to get Ryan Blaney as he looks to get his 3rd straight Martinsville fall win to punch a ticket to Phoenix. We got the driver of Team Penske 12 and Garage Confidential next. And one thing is well-known, Xfinity Series driver is switching teams, but there's also another Truck Series driver getting the call up. Who's going where? You're about to find out next. And when, Larry, I have to know, when's the last time that you were behind the wheel of a stock car?
Never. You
Never?
do not want to see me
Never.
in a race car. I'm the guy on I-77 in the left lane with my blinker on, Carla.
I like that. Me too. Yeah, we're about to take some laps around NASCAR's newest track when Around the Track continues. We'll be right back. Long rumored, now confirmed. Spire Motorsports announcing that Daniel Suarez will drive the 7 Chevy Camaro next season. Suarez, who is parting ways with Trackhouse in the 99 after next week's race in Phoenix. He didn't have to look long for a ride. Spire announced last week that Haley would lose that ride at the season's end. It's a good match for both sides. It keeps Suarez a 2-time Cup Series winner. In a Chevy, he'll start the 7 car at the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium in February. And we didn't have to wait too long to find out where Harrison Burton will be driving in 2026. Multiple sources tell us that Sam Hunt Racing is the destination for the 25-year-old. And while not everything is maybe ironed out completely there, the move means Burton will look to build on his playoff season with AM Racing from this year. The 2 announced they'd go separate ways 2 weeks ago, and Burton gave AM its first Xfinity Series playoff berth and its highest average finish ever as a team. The biggest thing here is that he's leaving Ford for a Toyota. And another big Xfinity Series move, Rajah Caruth is getting a part-time seat at Junior Motorsports. He's going to do multiple dates for Dale Jr. in that 88 car that Connor Zilisch is leaving. Rajah has been developing for some time now in the Hendrick pipeline. He's currently fighting for a Truck Series title. It'll be an interesting dynamic, of course, for JRM in the 26. And then you've got Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilisch are sharing the one car that Rodney Childers will crew chief Sammy Smith staying in the 8 for now. And for now, reigning Cup Series champion, or excuse me, Xfinity Series champion Justin Allgaier, he'll be in that 7. So that's a lot of moves to really digest, Larry. A lot going on for Junior Motorsports. But where does your attention go when we start talking about silly season and all these moves being made?
It may be, as far as the Cup Series, caller, it may be one of the quietest silly seasons that we've had. There's just not a lot of people moving. And we've known for a few weeks that Daniel Suarez will not return to Trackhouse Racing, that Connor Zilisch is going to go in that car. Randall Burnett is moving from Richard Childress Racing, become his crew chief. So really, Daniel Suarez, his options may have been a very small selection. It may have just been that 7 car for Spire. The Spire program has been a little bit fickle this year because they made a lot of changes during the off season. The 77 with Hocevar, the 71 with McDowell, they've had pretty good speed, especially Hocevar. But that 7, one top 5 and only one other top 10. I'm not surprised that they decided to make a change. But when I look at Daniel's numbers at Trackhouse this year and I look at the numbers at Spire, I don't know that this is a move up, but I don't know that it's a move going down. It almost looks like a little bit of a lateral move, but I like what Jeff Dickerson and everything that he continued to do over there to Spire to make it grow and make it better.
Yeah, they're certainly building their program from the top up. Well, one guy whose seat is more than safe is the 2023 Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney. However, his championship hopes do come down to this weekend at Martinsville, much like they have the past 2 seasons. Before Blaney begins his quest for another grandfather clock and championship 4 berth, our Gabe McDonald went one-on-one with him in this week's Garage Confidential.
Here with Ryan Blaney, getting ready to head up to Martinsville this weekend. Before we get into any of the racing stuff, NASCAR 25, not only in the game, but also on the cover. You got a rating at 98. Is it fair, foul? Have you played the game yet? How are you feeling about everything?
I appreciate the high level that they gave me. I really do. Pretty awesome to be on the cover. You know, when I collected all the NASCAR games when I was younger, coming up, I always was curious on who's going to be on the cover. Yeah. And it's really neat that they, allowed me to do that and be a part of that. I have played it. I think it's fantastic. I think iRacing did a really good job of coming in and helping out. Just released not too long ago, and I hope everyone really enjoys it.
And when you look at, just the season overall, really just comes down to one race. Going back to last weekend, though, in control there at the end, when you think about you and Joey Logano, how is it tough to swallow races like that when you had control there at the end and had a chance to win, especially at a place where you've been really successful?
Yeah, very tough to swallow. I thought we did a great job, not only my group, 22 Group 2, all of Team Penske for getting in a position to try to lead at the end of the race and win, and just lane kind of fell apart, and it just didn't happen. So I feel like that is a little bit more crushing than trying to come from the back. But, I mean, that's the way of motorsports, right? You never know what's going to happen, and all you can do is the best job. And I thought we did all we could control. So it comes down to Martinsville this weekend and seeing if we can do it again there.
And both of you guys really have been, really good when the pressure is on. I mean, obviously the last 3 champions for a reason. You've won in 23. Joey's won 2 of the last 3. What are those conversations like? Both of you guys backs against the wall, pretty much a win-and-in situation. What is the tension high over there? What's everything like this week heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, we try to keep it business as usual, of same meetings that we normally have, same prep work. Yeah, I mean, tensions obviously are high. This is your season, and best case scenario, only one of us is going to get in the championship, right? But that's the goal. That's all of Team Penske is working to, just getting one of our cars in. Who it is, Team Penske, Roger doesn't care, right? Just one of us we need to get in to try to have a shot at the championship.
And for you personally, the last 2 years, you've gotten it done this weekend to punch that ticket to Phoenix. Going in, what are those moments like, and what's it like being able to perform well when the pressure is on and knowing that, you had a winning situation and you're able to get it done? What's made Martinsville such a good track for Ryan Blaney?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been really good to me over the last handful of years. The first few years I went there in my career, I struggled really bad. It's just a difficult racetrack, but I always loved it. I always went there. I grew up in High Point, so I was just down the road. So I always loved going to Martinsville, watch my dad race or things like that. I just took me a while to kind of get my arms wrapped around what it takes to be good here. And then one of those days, it just finally clicks. You're like, okay, I feel like I understand how to drive this place and what I need the car to do. And yeah, the last 2 fall races there, being able to win both those was really, really special. Literally the same situation we were in last year of having to win to get to Phoenix, and we were able to pull it off. All we can do is just bring our best.
It's a place where we see a lot of chaos as well. How do you kind of channel that? We had the Hail Mail-in, obviously, see Bell, trying to do the same thing as well. How do you kind of handle all that, and what's it like, kind of dealing with that and being able to manage it too?
Yeah, 500 laps around that place is just nuts anyway. All the shifting we're doing, shifting 2,000 times during the race, that in itself is difficult. And then you have all the chaos of playoff cutoff race and things like that. And everyone usually kind of gets their revenge on people that race. Everybody in the field is kind of has their bones to pick, and they save it for that race. So you have to avoid all that chaos. I've just always looked at it as I just try to look at your own deal, focus on yourself, and the goal for us is simple, not worrying about points, just to go try to win the race. And don't try to worry about all that other stuff going on. Just can we do the best job that we can? And that's how I've always tried to have my mindset going into there.
Hopefully nobody has any bones to pick with Ryan Blaney.
I hope not. I feel like I've been pretty decent this year, but yeah, we'll find out. We'll see. It'll be wild though. I mean, regardless, it's going to be a great weekend. A lot of great things to watch going around that racetrack. And like I said, I hope to collect a third clock. That'd be pretty neat.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing you get it done. Ryan Blaney, thanks so much for your time, man.
Thanks, guys. The playoff beard going strong for Blaney. Well, don't start your engines just yet. NASCAR made some major moves regarding the season opening race at Daytona. Find out when we'll see the green flag drop at the Great American Race. Plus, a race at an active military base. That's a first. We're breaking down what the track at the Naval Base Coronado in San Diego is going to be like when drivers roll in their Father's Day weekend next season. More on Around the Track when we come back. A change is being made to the NASCAR schedule. It was announced this week that the Daytona 500 is going to be pushed back slightly in 2027. The Great American Race normally on President's Day weekend, but will be pushed back to February 21st in 2027. Now, the reason for that, the Super Bowl is planning for the same weekend in 2027. NASCAR, of course, wants your full attention for the 500 that weekend. And when Chicago and Mexico City got booted from the 2026 NASCAR schedule, all eyes went to one SoCal city. San Diego is going to host one of the biggest parties of the summer on an active military naval base. The course has just been revealed, but as Brandon Stone shows us, it got some very familiar traits.
For an advanced military complex, most of the streets out here at Naval Base Coronado are really for civilian purposes. For example, just down the street, an ordinary Starbucks. But in 8 months, that becomes turn 3 of 16 on this wide-ranging 3.4-mile track, the longest on NASCAR's schedule for next season.
It feels a little surreal to be talking about the event and sharing the course map. We had the course scanned last fall, and so we've been working with the Navy on getting this together. I feel very proud to be able to race on the military base, especially at this historic time in 2026, and we want to make sure we're doing them proud.
No road course is logging the miles this place will, but you see elements of all of these courses built into NASCAR's plans here. Take turns 2 and 3, 90-degree corners built just like the Chicago street race. The Coronado chicane looks just like the Roval and could punch in your quarter panel.
You know, we had a pretty strict set of guidelines as to where we could and couldn't race. And so you're not the first person who said that about the similarity to the other tracks. So I think it did work out that it's a nod to these other locations, which we're pretty excited about.
Then there's the last twist, a final turn right before the start-finish line, reminiscent of when Ross Chastain fought to the end at COTA. The Watermelon Man speaking about the impact of this race with me recently.
We're going to be a symbol for this country on Father's Day weekend next year. And I think being a NASCAR driver in today's day and age it's such a good time to be in the sport.
The TV views will be spectacular, but from the whole of San Diego Bay, you'll be able to see and certainly hear the horsepower over at the Naval Base. So whether you get a ticket on the inside or stare across the seas from the outside, Father's Day weekend next year will bring the action. From San Diego, I'm Brandon Stone.
Earlier this season, it was Denny Hamlin burning it down in Martinsville, but he's already locked into the championship 4. Who do we think will take the checkered flag? Our Victory Lane locks are next. For the second week in a row, it's Ryan Blaney atop the odds boards. With his back against the wall, he's a 4-1 favorite to take home his third grandfather clock. Right behind him, 5-1 is Kyle Larson. Christopher Bell is at his time. He's at 6.5 to 1, or 6.5 to 1, alongside Chase Elliott. William Byron, who's won the regular season championship, he's at 8.5 to 1 to round out the favorites. And of course, now it's time at the show before we close out. The last thing we have to do is to make our victory lane locks. Who you got this week, Larry?
Well, when I look at this group, how strong they have been at Martinsville, I think it's all about playoff drivers. I don't see a non-playoff driver winning. Honestly, I think you could throw him in a hat and draw a number. I know the 24, he's been a little bit fickle this year. They kind of been up, they kind of been down. But Martinsville, he's got the 2 wins there. In his 15 starts, 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and Rick Hendrick loves a grandfather clock. He's looking for number 30 at Martinsville.
And Hendrick's been strong all the way around. Of course, a lot to look forward to at Martinsville. We've got one more to go after this weekend. We'll see you at the Championship 4 in Phoenix.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.